Shiny things and pretty baubles. There's no telling how much joy we get from pretty creations. But when we think about the works of art and jewelry that we appreciate, we've got to remember that they all came from somewhere, conceptualized in the brilliant minds of artistic creatives. And today we get to live out loud with the Treasuremaker himself. Stand by for Brian Kivuti next. Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode. As always, remember to click subscribe to this channel and click on notifications so you never miss an episode of the show. But it's all about creative minds and brilliant treasures. We are joined by the one, the only Brian Kivuti. We are going to live out loud at Westwood Hotel with the Treasuremaker himself. Brian, let's get started with a very brief introduction. Who is Brian, the Treasuremaker?
You make it so...
Was it nice and dramatic enough?
I love drama. Okay, I don't love drama, but I love being dramatic. If it's dramatic in a subtle way that ends up deepening the enjoyment of a situation.
Yes.
Mostly because I can't avoid being dramatic in my persona. So, yeah.
and of course, it comes through in your work. So we've established that Brian is creative and dramatic. But going back to the beginning, when did you know that you were not going to be the doctor, the lawyer, the physicist? When was that clear for you?
Okay, so it was like primary school when I was first introduced to pottery that I first realized oh my God, I would have sworn a lot right now, but...
It's all right, we still love you and God still loves you.
No, yeah, I really, really love this, yeah? You know, it just takes you, yeah? It's that whole process of watching something in your hands take a form as your mind decides and explores with it how it feels, yeah? And it's almost as though it's a physical reflection of some process inside yourself, yeah? So you end up getting quite attached to it. So as the years went by and going to high school and whatnot, that particular affinity, that affection, that care grows, yeah? To the point where you're allowed to do longer classes in fine art and then, you get really, really excited. Yeah. And by A-levels, actually O-levels, you just know, actually.
This is it, this is what I'm gonna do. And was there ever a push and pull with the family?
Nope.
Because, some families be like, so you're going to do what? What are we supposed to do with you and what?
Yeah.
There wasn't any of that?
Well, I studied jewelry and silversmithing at uni, so I would imagine that for them to kind of pay for those fees, they would be supportive. But no, they have always been really supportive. My father has always had this view that if you're good at what you do, that specializing is far better than him pushing us to kind of do whatever he wants to do,
Right.
He, in his opinion, is if you have your dream, if you have your passion, then waking up in the morning, doing what needs to be done, and especially the difficult periods, you are the one who will actually push yourself, yeah? No one needs to push you, yeah? It will get you through the hard times, the great times, it will allow you to make the priorities that are needed, make the decisions that are great, and it will allow you to have that extra charisma that is needed.
Right.
Okay.
Very well spoken, very well said, and what a supportive network that you have. Going back to something that you said to me in this conversation so far, you went and studied this art. When I think about local jewelers, I'm thinking Masai Market, I'm thinking a few established designers who create and fashion pieces in their workshops and exhibit in shops in the malls, or they just have online stores. When you think about the skill that you've been able to acquire, there's something that is different from you and Jua Kali.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the art of creating, because it's just one thing to go and paint and this, but then there's the theory part of the creative process. What was that like for you?
The funny thing is, the Treasuremaker came second. I come from a fine art background. Design, yes, but I've always been first and foremost being attracted to fine art. photography, not really as a commercial thing, but art photography, sculpting, painting, clay, and all those kind of things. Even in the way that I discovered jewelry, it was while doing my foundation course in fine art. And then between my life drawing classes and kind of switching classes sometimes, I'd always use the jewelry department's corridor. And I didn't really realize why. There were other routes, but you find that subconsciously you keep picking this one route. Then I realized it's because of the pictures that they had framed on the walls. It was all the previous students' work. And you slowly find yourself constantly stopping and staring at these things and thinking, wow, but you don't really think to yourself, oh, I can do Cartier, or I can do that. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm
But you could.
emulating that, but
And
you don't
why
think
not?
that.
Yes.
Till one day you think to yourself,
And why not?
can I? Then I asked the head of the course, I was like, yo, so can you look at my work? Like, can you be able to tell if I could be a good jeweler or not? And his name is also Brian.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah.
Come
I'll
over
up.
here, let me
Yeah.
see this.
Yeah.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Pretty
and
much,
that became
yeah.
your chosen medium. That is where you pour your heart.
Oh, no.
Oh, no?
Yeah?
All right, then I'm going to stop in my tracks.
The reason I call myself a treasure maker is treasure for me, I see treasure as cultural currency. It is what we have to give our lives meaning, to give our lives that enjoyment. Culture in general is treasure. And jewelry itself, I could never really quite understand what value it has because it seems as though it's important to humanity considering that it is one of the oldest, career paths or the oldest creations
They've been
of man.
jewelers forever.
Yeah.
Since David and even before.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when it came to treasure making, I realized that for me it represents the fact that I love to work in an interdisciplinary manner. I love to make treasure, whether it be in jewelry, in painting, in photography, in sculpture, because over the period of time I found that my particular skills were actually applicable to multiple disciplines and I love to work in them. Jewelry, yes, is the one I'm using as my main medium, but I like to allow for the flexibility. Because not only are these skills applicable, but I find that together, you find that certain skills can lend really well to other fields. So jewelry lends really well to sculpture and sculpture vice versa. When you're working with photography, suddenly you end up picking a lot more understandings about surface textures and all these different things, and then you end up wondering about how you'd work with the metal in a certain way, and they kind of allowing yourself then to work with all these different materials and to make all these different things, but especially make them from that place inside,
Yeah.
that excitement, that enjoyment,
Yeah.
then produces the actual treasure, something that is hopefully meaningful to someone, if not just you.
Well, it's meaningful to me. Now that I know, I will respect the treasure maker and always refer to him as such, the treasure maker.
Oh, God,
Drums.
Oh, God, no. Oh, dear.
But it's
Yeah.
one thing to create pieces that you love, to be in the space of love and expressing this love inside.
Yes.
But you gotta pay the rent. So, being the treasure maker
Yes.
in Kenya today, is that a challenge or is it a shifting place to be and a lovely place to be, or is it still swimming upstream?
It is definitely swimming upstream. I don't think anyone would ever tell you otherwise in any field, especially if you're new and whatnot. What I find that the people who are really managing is I manage because of the support that I have. You find startups get good grants so they can be able to go the first 2 years or something like that, or the first year, to get some time to be able to gain traction. I find for me, given the fact that I work in a rather niche field, I didn't really expect it to kick off,
And take
from
off
the
like
start.
it is,
No.
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's taken off. I have the people
It's
who...
pleasantly surprised you.
It always is surprising. I find, this is what I would say. For me, the people who are really interested in what I'm doing find me regardless of what I do. It's the strangest thing. I have my Facebook or whatever else, but the people who have found and love what I do and pay for what I do and get involved in it don't come through those mediums. It just seems to be word of mouth and all the other fields. But talking with friends, and also in my experience, I think it generally takes time.
Yeah.
And the people who seem to manage are the ones who really get the support that they need.
If things were a little different, and this is hypothetical, if you didn't have the kind of support that you've had to take off, launch, and cruise control now, do you think you would still be making the treasure?
No.
Or would you have
That's a
said
definite no.
enough already?
No, I wouldn't have been able to start. The thing is, especially if I did the treasure making, it would probably be being in another field that is much more lenient
Yeah.
on the startup fees.
Right.
The advantage I find, like when it came to my jewelry, is that it is very expensive
Yeah.
to work on jewelry. The equipment that's required, it was a rather high startup figure.
Like what sort of equipment? I mean, we probably don't understand what you're going to say, but just
Yes.
walk us through it a little bit.
I particularly focus on casting, lost wax casting. The equipment that I gathered around myself was specifically to allow me to be both expressive, but also rather detailed and produce really high finishes.
Okay.
So it tends to be a lot of jewelry-specific metalworking to allow me to do really fine polishings,
Yeah.
to be able to melt the metal and produce it into really tight forms.
Right.
Trying to explain it in a way that's
Yeah,
not...
no, I think I already picked it up.
Yes.
It's Machuma za nguvu and Mamshaino za power. Yes,
yeah, but it
I
was
mean,
yeah.
bringing it back down to, let's just
Yeah.
understand, this stuff
Yeah.
does amazing things.
It does. It's all it's all specialized for small scale pieces.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's an expensive investment, but
Yeah.
it is turning itself around bit by
Yes, it
bit,
is.
little
Yeah.
by little.
Little by little.
For someone who's watching and thinking, that is my heart, that is where I want to be. It's one thing to have had the support. Do you provide networks to allow others to tap into you, to encourage other budding jewelers or other established ones who are struggling, thinking, okay, speak with me, let's see where you're going, and maybe.
I would love to be able to offer that. The
Yeah.
thing is, I had to start the studio while my classmates from university, they were in the UK, Japan, and whatever else. In Edinburgh, where I was, they have jewelry workshops where you can be able to rent out space. And if you're a jeweler who's starting out and everything else, you can have all this equipment available to you. And if you're a painter and whatnot, there is a lot of support provided by the government and all these institutions. It's really well advanced already. So a lot of the people that I knew from studying were able to simply do that and continue making. But while I love Nairobi and I love Kenya, when I came here, those services, those
The places
options
where you
were
could
not
go
available.
and lease and just rent it for a little period of time. Yeah.
However, what I'm finding is that a lot of people are starting to create those opportunities. Hopefully, I'll be able to create such an opportunity because I'm a believer in the artistic and the craft development. I am far less of a business person and much more of a craftsman, of an artist.
Right.
I am far more interested in discussing with people techniques and the development and advancement. I love when people give me critiques and they tell me this is how you can probably get a better polish, or when I can think about, the forms that I'm working with, and,
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that excite
That
me.
you would be open
Yes,
to. So
yeah.
for anybody who's thinking, I'm going to tap into him and I'm going to use his machines za nguvu, na vitu
Yeah.
za power, that's not it. It's, are you going to make me better at what I am doing? And are
Yes.
you also bringing something that's going to challenge and push me
Yes.
to the table?
Yes.
And that is something we can all live with.
Yes.
Looking ahead, how do we make life easier for you, the treasure maker, and others like you? What would you like to see happen in a big way?
One of the biggest things I would say is that if either the government or other institutions gave funding to the right groups, not individuals necessarily, but especially groups, I find people like the Nest, the Heaver Fund, and whatnot, people who are good with the management of financial funds, who are really well directed in their vision and their understanding of a certain field and the people involved and what they need. If they got the right funding, good funding, what would happen is that they will be able to open up institutions that provide exactly what we're talking about. Institutions that have the right equipment that people can be able to rent out, or the right kind of programs, because it's not necessarily just saying, oh, I want to start this, and you give someone money. There's so much more behind doing it well than just the money. It is the connections, the knowledge, it's how you schedule yourself, it's how you think, the ideas you have around success, around craft, around arts. It's one of the biggest things I found since going into this, not just by studying, but in going into it professionally,
Yeah.
is that you end up being surprised when you find that the ideas you have around work and success, the reality around it is very different. You find that what you thought you wanted isn't exactly what you want. And then you find that what you really want is something that you end up discovering in that process.
Right. We've covered funding and securing more outlets for more budding artists. But then there's the issue of marketing. There's the issue of exhibiting your work and making sure that you're not just relying on word of mouth. What do you think needs to be done on that front? And are there any things that you're doing to try and help you?
No, Mel will
help
tell you this.
You.
Oh dear, Mel will tell you this.
Yeah.
So much needs to be done on so many levels. And that's a beautiful thing. It's not necessarily a sad thing. It can be difficult if you're already in the field and you really need those spaces and everything else. But on the other hand, then you realize that there are all these opportunities that you can be able to start, for people to start and to do it better and to do it differently. Yes, there is a lot of room. One of the things I found is, for me, while I did find some spaces to, let's say, exhibit and show my work or to be able to sell, is suddenly I found after that my price range is a little bit more high-end. But suddenly it meant that so many other options were closed off to me if I were to effectively show my work,
Yeah.
And once you start really understanding the nature of your work and how it is best displayed, I suddenly found I don't really have any spaces that
you
are
can
many
go and,
that are,
and use, and then things work out for you financially.
This is something I was discussing with a couple of friends, and now we're asking, should we start something, given that we now have this new dilemma?
Possibly, yes, because people need to find jobs. So you're just thinking, you've given somebody an idea to create a new job that will help artists like yourself and others as well. But
the biggest thing I found is, in some situations, like we were saying, like places to exhibit, there are some places that I know that are well run, but the biggest problem I find in Nairobi is some of the places that are already there are not well run. They're not managed well. And that's one of the reasons why some of them I can't
You can't take
be.
the work there.
Because I've heard friends who have exhibited there or who have been with who, and then you hear these horror stories, and then you're like,
no, not for me.
oh God,
Yeah, why not? We'll just sit here on Facebook for a little while longer and hope for the best here.
Yeah.
But looking at your work, we've talked so much about it. I'd like to see it, you know?
Yeah,
and the proof of the pudding is in the eating or the wearing of the treasures.
Yeah, would you like to? In
Yes.
fact, I think you're probably the same ring size as me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's give it a
Lord.
try.
Okay.
This is one of my
Is
favorites.
this going to be one of those rehearsal moments for the I do situation? Oh my gosh.
Damn, it
Look
looks
at
good
that.
on you. Yeah,
Ta-da!
yeah.
If you like it, then you should have put something on it. I love this. So what inspired this piece?
This is part of my C-form collection.
Okay.
My work tends to be quite sculptural. I focus on limited edition and one-off
Could I be
pieces.
your model? Look at that.
You could.
Yes.
Most of these pieces, like I'm wearing on my hands, that is a one-off piece currently. Particularly from last year, I kept getting these images in my mind of the sea.
Right.
The sea, a stormy sea especially, tends for me to represent what my experience inside is like. So that I use as my starting point. The pieces I tend to make can have the meaning that you can be able to draw on to have a connection to it, but I try to make my pieces not to rely on that. So you focus on the form, you can look at it, you can enjoy it, and you don't really need to know what it's about.
Yeah.
But for me, it was about the experience of myself inside. Watching that storm and the fluctuations and the forms becoming quite sinuous and fluid, for me, represents what it's like to live. You know, it's imperfections made beautiful. It is fluidity. It is the organic. So for me, I kind of use that as my source, my inspiration to now create these pieces, these forms, and I kind of just went with it, and then things started to happen.
Right.
And, yeah.
When I look at this and I wear it and I hear you describe it and you're talking about the ocean, I can't help but think of something else, which is when you look at the waves, there are no two waves that are alike ever. There
And
never
none of my
will.
pieces are.
And none of your pieces are alike. Each one is its own unique wave, just hitting the world and joining the jewelry boxes and the treasure troves.
Yes.
One at a time. And I like that because we're living in such a copy-paste world where finding that thing that's unique is now very difficult to find. Brian, I don't want to let you go, but I just want to know, where can we find you? How can we find you? How can we start getting pieces of treasure
Yes.
to treasure? Did you see what I did there?
Yes.
I know,
Yep.
I'm so good.
Yep.
I'm so
okay.
good.
Oh dear. Okay.
Someone stop me.
Oh God. I really enjoyed myself. I've really enjoyed myself.
Well, that's a good thing. Thank God for that.
Well, I am setting up a website. Finally. Oh
The
my
saints be
God.
praised.
Oh dear. Oh, the stumbling blocks that have come. People can be able to find me on briankivuti.com,
Yeah.
and I also regularly post my experiences and my journey on Facebook. Brian the Jeweler, or just Brian Kivuti as well.
Yeah.
But briankivuti.com, you can be able to find everything that's needed there.
All right.
My approach to kind of sharing my work with people tends to be a little bit more personal for those who really like it. I feel those who love my work will love it. Those who don't feel it,
It's
that's
okay.
absolutely
Keep
fine.
it moving.
Yeah, it's
Keep
cool.
it moving.
Yeah.
Find your space. Find
Yeah.
your treasure. I like that. I really
Yes.
do. And
Yeah.
words of encouragement to somebody who's struggling or doesn't have support or is on the verge of giving up because they're so different and their path is just like nobody else's. What would you like to say to them?
I would say it is very important to find your crowd, to find your support. The journey can be so tough, and doing it alone is, I don't think I could have. It's not necessarily just even getting funding, it's simply those hard days that you really need someone to talk to. It is having the chance to develop the mental understanding of what you're doing. That is the biggest thing. If you're going to succeed, you really need to develop that flow in the understanding of what you're doing. So whether it be online, through going out and meeting new people, and especially people who think in any way similar to the way you do, that would be the biggest thing.
Right.
I think it would be stupid or silly of me to say this is the well-worn work, the path that you must follow.
Right.
But if you really want to do something that is worthwhile for you as a person, I think most of the time you will find that no one can really tell you which way.
Yeah. You've
But-
got to figure it
Yeah.
out. That
But
expression.
it's so much easier when you have people around you who think in a similar way,
Yeah.
who create in a similar way, who are interested in that creation, that creativity, who understand when you say A, B, C, D, and 98 or 99.4% of people will look at you blankly. Those few people will look at you and they'll say, I know.
Okay.
Like, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This person,
Yeah.
we've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
The chosen one.
And then they say something back to you and then you're like, I know, yeah?
Yes.
Or I didn't think of it that way.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you for making the
Yeah.
time to sit here with us and being patient with us as well. We wish you well. The doors are open.
been my pleasure.
I'm waiting for my form. I'll be choosing one in a matter of moments. If you see me sporting one of them, you know where I picked it up. But thank you so very much for joining us for yet another episode of Sheila Lives Out Loud. We are going to post links to Brian Kivuti's pages on all of my social media links so we can get you making some treasure of your own as well. It's about time. But we're signing out from Westwood Hotel saying live out loud in each and every single thing you do. Subscribe to this channel and click on notifications. Until next time, bye for now.